Hello and welcome to Dialogue of Civilisations. COP29, the UN top climate conference held in Baku, Azerbaijan, is now over. Amidst bitter divisions, acrimony, insinuations, incriminations, recriminations, mutually exclusive propositions, the congregation culminated in the adoption of a new collective quantified goal known as NCQG. The Baku Finance Goal sets a new global target to channel $1.3 trillion of climate finance to developing countries, including a new core finance goal of $300 billion, tripling the previous target agreed back in 2009. COP29 also delivered on the full operationalization of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, ending decade-long complex negotiations on high-integrity carbon markets under the United Nations. Although many praised this outcome as balanced, being reflective of the best possible compromise between the global north and global south that could have been realistically attained, there are many of those who remain indignant and completely dissatisfied. The deal has come under harsh criticism from the developing world, with the African group of negotiators, for instance, describing the final pledge as too little, too late, and India dismissing the sum as paltry. My guests today are Geyser Nawab, President of the Belt and Road Initiative for Sustainable Development and Global Climate Use Advocate, COP29 delegate from Pakistan, and Mr. Saikat Das, Partner Coordinator at the UK-based Energy Working Group, YOUNGO, and Vice President of Finance at European Young Engineers, known as I, also UNFCCC delegate. Welcome to both of you. I'm so grateful to you for your time. So let's begin our conversation with this all-important NCQG decision. This was a key deliverable of this COP and the most controversial issue amongst the agenda items. Perhaps we could begin with Mr. Nawab. What's your take on this subject?
I think NCQGs are vital because they represent the financial backbone for achieving the climate goals post-2025. I mean, the delay in agreeing on specific amounts reflects a lack of political will from developed countries who have yet to fulfill the previous committed 100 billion pledge in UAE and Dubai. I think it's very commendable for having pledged for at least triple of that. I mean, 300 billion. But this undermines trust as well, especially to the vulnerable nations facing severe climate impact. For example, in my part of the world, Pakistan, devastating floods in 2022 highlighted the urgent need for predictable, scaled-up finance to address both adaptation and mitigations. I think developed nations must step up and commit to ambitious, equitable financing this 1.3 trillion. It's not just a financial obligation, it's a moral imperative as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Das, so Mr. Nawab believes that the sum is not sufficient and there's an issue of moral obligation here. What is your take on this subject?
Of course, definitely. First of all, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure. Since 2015, countries has extended the pledge until 2025. So this extension is nothing more than a deliverable of negligibles, and also we failed to give this kind of amounts to the developing nations. So with upcoming 2025, we really need a new goal and develop the finances. But in this financial goal and the pledge, that outcome that we received is not like financially feasible. Because as already Nawab said, that there is a lot of devastating climate crisis going on, and with the experts saying that we need at least 1 trillion per year, and the developing countries, those have already submitted their NDCs, have their own goals, targets. They also need a lot of money, which is already recorded as 1.3 trillion per year, and giving just 300 billion, not trillion as well, just 300 billion. Which is really negligible until 2035. That it was a very bad decision in terms of this year's COP29, and countries are really not happy accordingly.
I see. And also, let's reflect on the process of actually agreeing on this NCQG decision. It has proven to be incredibly protracted. The decision was made at the 11th hour, and what we heard during the conference was that because the developed countries, in order to compel the developing ones to agree to a lesser figure, employed the tactic of what we may call belated revelation. I mean, they revealed the figure only too late. Do you think this tactic was indeed utilized during the process? Mr. Nava, please.
I think that was really a very good joke by the developed countries with all those, especially the smaller islands and the least developed countries and the countries like us, the most populous, like we have the biggest population. We hold, I mean, the major part of the human beings and of course the species as well. My friend from India itself. I mean, then this when comes to the seriousness of the developed countries and then the negotiation, and it was a kind of a joke on humanity as well. So I was a part of that and was looking at and observing it. I think it was like not petty than just to laugh at the humanity by the developed countries, but we must appreciate the presidency efforts and of course their hard work as well. I mean, it comes to somehow in a conclusion, it closes with some hopes, but of course this further need to be like this further need to take up as well.
Mr. Das, that's a critical moment when I think on the 23rd afternoon, we heard about this 250 billion package, which was rejected roundly by developing countries. What do you think about the tactic, so-called tactic employed by the global north countries?
Basically, we are here with the negotiators. So negotiation happens in this way. We already know that we will have some kind of figure which all the country will come up with, that we will not take this figure, and then they will come up with a new figure, which is slightly better. I still remember that after we received the first text from the presidency, we G77 plus China had a huge meeting with all the NGOs and all the civil societies. We put forward a letter to the developed nation and also to the COP29 presidency that we don't agree with the numbers, and it is better to have no deal rather than a bad deal. So that was a slogan with a huge form of crowd over there. We knew from the starting that they will have some kind of new published you can say a baseline, but baseline is not too much far away from the initial number, which was really bad. In fact, you can see India disapproved that, have given their a huge vote of undermining acknowledgement, and also they noted that they were very much hurted with this decision, because trust is the most important build-up for this kind of negotiations. It's not a legally binded, but of course everyone voluntarily being in the same space. But when the trust is not built up in a proper logical and short-term goals and long-term goals away, keeping the science behind it again away, then doesn't make any sense. So of course I can see that's a huge tactics that was been taken. And those tactics also, I'm happy with the grant-based resources that the acknowledgement needs for the public and grant-based resources without the debt, but there's a long lag between exactly the Paris Agreement and the text that we received for finalized.
I see. Also, of course, many would say that whilst agreeing to a language to increase financing, every country was also thinking about its domestic situation, and of course President-elect Trump's re-election and the possible implications emanating from the possibility of US withdrawing from the Paris Agreement also have played an important role in the negotiations. To what extent do you think that domestic discourse was a prevailing factor in terms of informing the parties' decision, their approaches regarding the NCQG? Mr. Nawab.
So I think the world is now more interconnected. I think the climate diplomacy is now a part of the integral. It's now an integral part of the national and international diplomacy. So it's not only linked to the climate change, but it's also linked to the businesses as well. The Trump is, I think, no more the previous Trump. I think that the world is changing. I don't think so that the United States will be doing the same as that happened previously in the Trump era. But I think it's now everything is linked with the businesses, and all these relations are linked with the climate diplomacy as well. So these domestic, I think, ecos cannot more further have an implications on these kind of agreements. I think the Paris agreements will carry on by the United States itself as well, because the larger interest is now in the climate change diplomacy. This is my personal belief.
Oh, indeed. Mr. Sarkitas, of course, we please also reflect on the possible implications of Trump's re-election, and then also to what extent it did complicate the process for developed countries to agree to a particular thumb. And also we heard the criticism of the NCQG from richer countries as well, and they were saying that the final deal, when you look at it cumulatively, holistically, does lack stronger language on mitigation. The feeling is that developed countries were expecting that UAE consensus on transitioning away from fossil fuels in an equitable, just and orderly manner to be reinforced with a stronger language. What do you think? What have you made of the position maintained by the most of the developed countries?
Yes, I'll take this question, and also I'll answer the previous question in a just short manner. That if you take just the Trump, upcoming elections and every scenario, also hampered the whole robustness. If you recall the Kyoto Protocol, which was the first binding agreement, it was US also a part of the whole failure of the Kyoto Protocol. So at that time, Trump legacy was not there, but also the economic factor and the geopolitical factor acting on the same part. So I guess, the transparency is not negotiable, according to myself. So the robustness of global system must be established to monitor, report, and verify the financial contributions and disbursements. The world is seeing everything, like every person, every climate negotiators, activists, and volunteers always see each and everything. They try to provide their own time in getting those narratives and a proper language for in the text. So I guess. Definitely, the whole system is affected by the Trump era previously as well, and I guess right now as well. But the world is not shut down right now. Everyone is seeing each and everything. They are tracking all the changes, and I think we are right now. We will get a tangible changes. Is just not the starting, but of course it is the starting of a revolutioning era into a proper socio-geopolitical formation.
Indeed.
And yes, and of course for the second questions of yours, we have seen like throughout the first week and the second week, few of the text like global goal of adaptation, just transition work program, Article 6, and also the most important, which was the 10-year work program on gender plus roadmap to gender action plan and mitigation work program was really successful in terms of at least giving them some kind of short-term and long-term goals. But we also see the UAE dialogue on global stock take was a failure. I was looking ahead for this text to get some kind of consensus as well, because last year we had a very good global stock take points where the paragraph 28 says the tripling of the tripling of renewable energy capacity building in nuclears. We also have the increase in efficiencies, doubling from 2% to 4%. So everything is been recorded into the NDCs as well, whatever have been submitted and whatever will be submitted by February next year. But the transparency, we have the BTR. The whole context is not viable. The whole context is not saying actually what it's supposed to say. The work program is really important, but also the UAE dialogue on GST was the crucial one that has to be gone through a proper consensus, according to me.
Yes. Let's move back to this proposition which was referred to earlier. I believe both of you disagree with that proposition on the basis of what I understood from your answers. There were some people who were saying that no deal is better than a bad deal. And I heard these people saying this. I mean, to what extent do you think practically achieving nothing during this conference in terms of a decision would have sort of positively contributed to our fight against climate change? I mean, what's the rationale behind the proposition that no deal actually is better than a bad deal? I mean, Mr. Nawab, please, let's hear from you first.
So, thank you. Personally, I think, no deal is better than a bad deal. I think this idea practical is not existing anymore when we see the real and impractical role of the multilateral forums that are decreasing day by day. I mean, when we see the United Nations when it comes to its role in Russia and Ukraine war, and now Palestine and the Israel conflict. I mean, these roles are no more, existing anywhere in practicality. It's just coming to, the slogans and of course the nice and good statements, and nothing in practical anymore. But of course, I think when something is coming up, the developing countries still need it, and it's needed in a higher demand. I will come again to in my part of the world. There are several issues that comes due to this climate change, and I think if not financially supported by the global community, particularly the developed countries, then the things will be severely devastating more and more. So similarly, in the smaller islands, we have seen that many islands have the problems. They are just quitting ground, and their areas are coming less and less, and the sea level is going up. So they have done there in the past in several examples are there. So I believe that these multilateral forums are still valid when it comes to at least negotiation, and we come across with such a smaller number, but it has some results.
And Mr. Das, what is your reflection on this moment, the proposition that no deal is better than the bad deal? About the rationale behind this thinking,
Yes. So every year we come for a new COP, right? And every year we are some kind of hopeful that we will receive some, a greater deal, a deal that will definitely mark our pathway towards the net zero 2050. But at the end of every COP, we are looking for the other COP that, okay, maybe the next COP will give some kind of consensus, maybe some kind of a better deal, whether we are moving ahead with the proper finances, mobility, or just transitions and whatsoever, like every thematics we have. Why we look over to it? If since past 30 years, more than that, we having the same conversation day by day, we are not going towards a tangible outcome, right? And after that, we are having a deal which is really less than the Paris Agreement itself. So if we start again from the zero right now, we have already crossed over certain paths, we have already crossed over certain goals, we have our targets which has been fixed, and right now if we have a deal which is lowering those targets as well, is it feasible to take for any country to just move on? Every country, including developing country or developed country, have their own long-term and short-term goal nationally as well, and those nationally agreements are banded by the parties, the government, the national government, and also the sub-regional and regional governments. They're working on it. But if there is a deal which they have to simplify and report globally, which deal is less than their the long-term and short-term national goals as well, is it to do and spend their time on the same parameters with some kind of funding? If they don't have funding, how come they have to be in the same level of NDCs? So of course, if there is a deal which is really bad in terms of the baseline that we have set it, no deal is better than that.
If you compare two possibilities, one is absolutely no deal. There's absolutely no possibility for climate finance to be unleashed. There's no consensus. There's divisions they're manifesting themselves in a crystal clear way. And one element of compromise. Would you still go for the reinstatement of those bitter divisions? That's the question to Mr. Das, please.
Was I think until 2020.
Yeah.
And it was completed by 2022, 2 years afterward.
Are you talking about the Copenhagen Accords, right?
The Copenhagen Accords, yes. And then right now we are talking about at least 1.3 trillion per year to just complete our whole trajectory towards a proper net zero low carbon emission economy, where the developed country, whoever already emitted, and they did their deeds till now, and we are asking the help, not just not the money, but also technology transfer, skill development, and they need to help us to grow towards a proper low carbon economy, because every country has their right to grow. No one can stop it. But if the growth is, questionable in terms of the climate change, we should be like, the global south should be helped by the global north, whoever like already developed. They have the technology, they have the money. So why not disseminate to global south, and they can also grow in terms of low carbons. Many prospects there, like, kind of article 6 is there. We need proper supply chain management, because renewables is not just tripling of energy, but also tripling of the materials and whatever needed for supply chain in terms of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So if we have a deal which is like lower than the deal which we already working upon from the next last year, how we will get towards the next goal, how we will get towards the efficiency of NDCs that has been submitted for the next year. So is it like we are just going in an upward direction drastically and then falling and then again going up? There's no way. And if the developed country is doing some kind of negotiations tactic, that okay, right now we are giving a grant to you just to just for a baseline purpose, so that you can start working on it, and then we will see after 2035 how we will come up with some kind of budgetaries. No way we can make it to net zero. And after that, everyone will point out that there was a situation where the developing countries haven't met the goal. How will they meet the goal if there is no proper mechanism?
And
So
also,
yeah,
you already mentioned about
no deal.
Article 6. Could you please, I mean, both of you actually, walk us through the full operationalization of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement? This has been described as one of the most intricate and overwhelmingly technical elements within the COP terminology and COP discussions. What is the significance of Article 6? We heard quite a lot about it. We understand that only experts and people of specific knowledge fully understand its full scope. Mr. Nawab, perhaps we could begin with you.
I think this is a very important part of the discussion as well. I mean, Article 6, of course, is a critical for cost-effective climate solution, allowing many countries to collaborate through carbon markets, which is, of course, one of the emerging markets of today's world. However, its success depends on robust rules to prevent double counting and ensure integrity, and also this standardization politics that always come from the global north to the global south. The lack of agreement, clear frameworks at COP29 reflects the missed opportunities as well. For instance, if implemented effectively, Article 6 could fund renewable energy projects in countries like Pakistan or Kenya or smaller islands that can accelerate their transitions while reducing global emission. I personally urge the developed countries to focus on fair implementation mechanisms, supporting nations most in need, and of course the knowledge to share with the global south as well. It's a very new subject for the global south.
Mr. Das, we know that negotiations about Article 6, they have been underway since 2015, and it looks like that we achieved something quite considerable in Baku, and we call it a crucial element of Baku breakthrough. Why the negotiations were so protracted in the first place, and why we actually managed to achieve something regarding this here in Baku in 2024?
Yes, as my dear friend Nawab has already explained, I'll just try to get a deeper inside it as a detailed what exactly Article 6 is, because it's near to my interest as well. So first week of COP29, we reached a significant milestone with the adoption of decisions on Article 6.8. So if we focus, what is 6.2, 6.4 and 6.8? Article 6.2 is establishing rules for bilateral and multilateral carbon trading throughout international transfer mitigation outcomes, basically. So any global south or global north country can do some kind of mitigation programs or mitigation projects, which can be somehow transferred into credits, and they can sell those credits to any developed country to get some kind of credits back or money back, or maybe increasing their emission targets. So enables them to cooperate in terms of nationally determined contribution as well, like the NDCs. So they can show that okay, some kind of project, somehow the projects has been done, and the lowering of emission has been recorded in their NDC submissions. In 6.4, we have the centralized mechanism, which is called a centralized mechanism for transferring those ITMO from one country to another, or like a corporate mechanism. And this trading emission reductions always ensures environmental integrity as well, which is the transfer, as my friend Nawab already spoke about. The transparency and integrity is very important in this Article 6.4. And Article 6.8 is a non-market approach. That means if you are doing some kind of projects, which is we can say nature-based solution or ecosystem as a service, those projects always gives us some kind of lower of emission targets. You cannot sell it because of course that's a non-market approach, but we can give some kind of learning or capacity building from one country to other country to minimize the emissions or lower the emissions from their baseline. So those are the three important factors that we see.
Yeah.
But in this year decisions, we have found some kind of methodology, like in 6.4 we have approved the UN supervisory body will be generating a trade market where they will supervise how the integrity and transparency and also the transfer of ITMOs will happen with the proper authorizations and giving some kind of methodologies on it. So that was the huge step that we took, and we all are happy in this step.
Well, thank you very much for explaining the importance of the full operationalization of Article 6. My last question to both of you is the following one. In the light of COP29, what we have seen there during those 13 days, would you now say that divides between the global north and global south are more pronounced, or would you rather say that they are now breached to a certain extent in the light of what we have seen so far? What is your reflection on this? And please, Mr. Nawab, first you, and then Mr. Das.
I think it is very important to mention that there was several protests, not only by the civil society, but of course by other stakeholders as well. And those stakeholders are usually belonging from the global south, and their voices were just voices of the millions of frustrated community that are always tackled by the delays and insufficient actions of the tactics by the global north. When the inability to agree on the NCQG amount at COP29 also highlights the persistent divide between the developing and developing nations, which further bring the frustration among the people from the global south. While developed countries emphasize mitigation, they often neglect adaptation needs as well, which are critical for countries facing exceptional threats. For example, in small islands, nations like Tuvalu or cities like Karachi in Pakistan, the stakes are existential. Delaying agreements leaves these regions vulnerable, which actually further enhance the bridge between, the division between these two. And I think the most possible better approach is the triangular approach as well, the global and South-South cooperation, but of course the South-South and North cooperation. My friend Sikat Das also mentioned about it. There are several other aspects of the agreements and these all kind of negotiation. For example, the capacity building, which is also very important. So I think we should look into those aspects as well, that these divisions can further bring the loss to the world, to the planet, which is the only planet we are having to live in.
So you see more positivity in a sense that we are actually on the way to breach those divides, but those divides remain still quite palpable. Mr. Das, your reflection on the same subject, please.
As an expert on energy and just transition, I always say that the policies or the negotiations, everything depends on the people or the stakeholders for whom we are making it. We can see a devastating change in climates in every corner of the world. If we are not welcoming those voices into the table, we cannot see exactly what they want, how the policies should be tangible and equitable, not just justified, but it should be equitable to everyone. So engaging the community like a sub-regional level, regional level, all together, and managing those voices upward, that what exactly the changes should be made, not just for global north and global south, but exactly in community level. Those is the most important aspect for progressing towards a significant marker with several opportunities to strengthen the process. And when we say a partnership building, the partnership has to be done in terms of collaborative manner. It's a collaboration. The SDG 7 is always kind of partnership. So we build partnership in between nations, we build partnership in between parties, where we can build some this capacity building, resilience, adaptation, climate adaptations, energies, and focus towards a more greener, tomorrow, where we can dedicatedly form a mechanism to facilitate and afford the whole accessibility towards technological transfer, skill development, or at least minimize the gap behind, minimize the gap of policies and exactly what the people really wants, not from top to bottom, but at least towards bottom to top approach. So that's my take by for with all the missed opportunities also that we had since now.
Mr. Saikat Das and Guy Senawab, I'm most grateful to both of you. Thank you very much indeed for your time and for this very, very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. And of course, lastly, would like to appreciate the President of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, and of course the COP presidency for hosting us very generously. And I would must take a lead to mention that the volunteers were amazing, who was charming us every day. I mean, even after going from the COP and before coming to the COP as well. So thank you for this hospitality to the people of Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank
Definitely.
you very much. Thank you.
From me as well.
Please.
Everything was perfect. The management was amazing. The city, the Baku city, must visit, really good. And in terms of the COP overall process, of course, everyone tried a lot. The presidency was all the time on the spot on how to reach the goals. But yeah, as all COPs, we always find some kind of win-win situation, some kind of like losing situation. But we all together are on the same boat, moving ahead with the same destination. So yeah.
Thank you to both.
Thank you so much.
Sekaf, don't miss the delicious food. Don't miss the delicious food of Azerbaijan as well.
Well, thank you.
Definitely,
I'm very glad.
definitely.
Thank you very much indeed.
This one.
Thank you very much. Success is a relative concept. The divisions between the global north and global south are unlikely to fade away anytime soon. When COP29 President Mukhtar Babayev's gavel went down, the Nizami plenary hall was filled with applause and excitement, with some, however, feeling bitterly frustrated too. This testifies to the complexity of climate diplomacy and perhaps the absolute impossibility of achieving a decision that would make everybody equally happy. Diplomacy is the art of the possible. We have a deal, and there is a reason to be hopeful. Looking forward to welcoming you to the next episode of Dialogue of Civilisations.